In an extraordinary interview tonight, Prince Harry has spoken candidly about the breakdown of his relationship with his father and other members of the royal family.
A king's wish shocked all. Harry's kids, Archie and Lilibet, get no royal titles. Harry was heartbroken. William felt torn between his dad and his brother's family. Princess Anne delivered King Charles's final, no titles, ever decree for them. Let's expose how it was announced, guess what King Charles might have been thinking, and see how this news shook up the royal family. The big news, a royal shock. It all started one morning at Buckingham Palace. People working there felt something important was about to happen. Princess Anne, looking serious, stood up to speak. She said it plainly. The king had a final wish. No royal names for Archie, no royal names for Lilibet. Not now, not ever. Why did Princess Anne have to tell everyone? Maybe because she is known for being strong and loyal. She could deliver such serious news calmly. You can picture the room, people shocked, reporters scribbling. Even the palace workers, who usually know how to handle things, probably looked worried. And what about the children in the middle of all this? Archie is a 5-year-old boy. Lilibet is a 2-year-old girl. Suddenly, they were not just Harry and Meghan's kids. They were part of a big royal disagreement. Their lives changed because of a choice made by the king. No Prince Archie, no Princess Lilibet. Just Archie and Lilibet, who now had to carry the weight of their father's choices, it seemed. For a king to ask this about his own grandkids is a very big step. It hasn't really happened like this in modern royal times. This isn't just about names and fancy things, it's about feelings, family ties, and a lot of pressure. A father's love, a brother's sadness, and many people wondering if this royal story has taken a very unhappy turn. Behind the palace walls, secrets and sadness. What was happening away from the cameras? There were likely many quiet, worried talks. First, let's think about King Charles. He had a complex life growing up, a difficult marriage to Princess Diana, and he waited a very long time to become king. What made him decide this? People often say he wants a smaller, more modern royal family. Maybe in his mind, this isn't about being mean, but about making the royal family stronger and showing he's in charge. But using power like this can cause a lot of hurt. Then there's Prince William, the next in line to be king. He was caught in a tough spot. He loves his brother Harry, but he also has to be loyal to his father, the king. Imagine how hard that must be. He's not just a prince. He's a brother watching his niece and nephew being treated differently. And what about Harry? He lives in California now. Imagine him hearing that his children's royal connection was being weakened by a wish. He must have felt angry, sad, and very protective of his family. He probably felt it was a huge injustice. This wasn't just a small argument. It was about who his children are. The way the news was shared was very formal and serious. Princess Anne stood there with pictures of old kings and queens watching. When she spoke, the news hit hard. People were shocked. Photographers took lots of pictures. Everyone wondered, what does this mean? Why now? How can kids be left out like this? Archie, the happy little boy, and Lilibet, the sweet toddler. Suddenly, they were not part of the main royal story in the same way. The king's wish, told by his sister, wasn't just about names. It was about who they were and where they belonged. Even reporters who have seen a lot felt this was a big moment in history. After Princess Anne finished, the palace quickly started trying to manage the situation. They wrote official messages and sent a formal note to Prince Harry about his children. Newspaper headlines shouted things like, "King keeps grandkids from royal titles." Experts talked about it, and people on social media shared their opinions like wildfire. But what about the private feelings? Some palace workers were reportedly very sad, feeling that something innocent was lost. Even Princess Anne, after delivering the news so calmly, was said to have comforted people, knowing how serious it was. This wasn't just a rule change, it was a moment where old ways clashed with a new, tough decision. For the family, it felt like something broke. For the world, it was a peek into an old institution struggling with its future. What's in a royal name? In the royal world, a title means everything. It means history, who you are, what you can do, and even how safe you are. Titles started long ago when kings used them to show their power. Think about kings giving lands and fancy names to their loyal friends. These weren't just gifts. They were important for running the country. Later, there was a clear order: princes, dukes, and so on. Each name came with special jobs and benefits. The king or queen used these names to reward friends and punish enemies. If you were born royal, a title wasn't just a gift, it was a lifelong promise to serve your country. As time went on, through different kings and queens, titles also became important for showing a country's power to the world. In the 1900s, things changed. King George V, during a war, made a rule that limited who could be called a prince or princess. This was a big change, making the royal family more clearly defined. Queen Elizabeth II also made careful choices about who got titles, trying to balance old ways with modern needs. When Harry married Meghan, he became a duke. It was expected that their children would be called Prince and Princess. But things are always complicated. What people expect, how much things cost, keeping the family together, and keeping the royal family strong. And a title isn't just for show. It comes with real things: security paid for by the government, which costs a lot, people to help with work, and entry into important events where just being Mr. Windsor might not be enough. It's about where you sit at big dinners and many other details. But maybe the biggest thing about a title is the identity it gives. To be called prince or princess means you are part of a story that goes back hundreds of years. It connects you to history. If that title is taken away, it can feel like those connections are cut. History has stories about this. Sometimes titles were given and then caused trouble. Sometimes they were taken away when friendships ended. More recently, people wondered if Prince Andrew should have lost his royal titles because of his actions. It shows that titles are not set in stone. They can be affected by people's behavior and what the public thinks. Other royal families in countries like Sweden, Denmark, and the Netherlands have also made changes to have fewer royals with top titles. So, King Charles's decision is part of a trend, but it's also a very personal decision that affects two specific children, cutting them off from a part of their family story. When a king does this, he's not just changing names, he's changing family connections, and some would say their personal histories. William's difficult choice: brother, son, and future king. Now let's think about Prince William. He's at Kensington Palace, a place full of history, but he's dealing with a very new problem. Imagine him looking at an old family photo of him and Harry as kids with their mother, Princess Diana, smiling. Life seemed simpler then. But now he gets the official letter. The king's final wish. Archie and Lilibet will not have royal titles ever. How does William react? He's probably very tense and sad. How do you tell your own kids about this? How will his son, George, understand that his cousins are now different in this way? William has to think about his future as king and his family right now. It's a lot of pressure. He walks around remembering talks with Harry about changing the royal family talks that seemed like just ideas back then, but now feel like a painful reality. He remembers his last phone call with Harry, which was tense. William had tried to make Harry feel better, never thinking things would get this serious. Then Catherine, Princess of Wales, comes in. They don't need to say much. They can see the worry in each other's eyes. They sit together quietly, united against this problem that could pull their family apart. William has a very hard choice. Should he support his father's wish to keep the royal family strong, or should he stand up for his brother's children? Every choice is difficult. Being loyal to his father could mean hurting his relationship with his brother. Standing up for Harry's kids could mean going against the king. He knows he needs to think carefully. He remembers fun childhood days with Harry at Sandringham. Those days feel long gone. He remembers writing a letter to Harry before Harry's wedding, promising that family would always be most important. Do those words feel empty now? He always felt he should protect his brother. Now that feeling goes against what the king wants. William decides to act. He tells his helper to set up a meeting with an important royal official. He has questions about the law, about royal rules, and about what this means for everyone. Is there any way to lessen this decision, to protect his nephew and niece without openly going against his father? He thinks about calling Harry right away, but worries it might make things worse. Instead, he writes a note to Harry. Harry, I know this news is a shock for you and all of us. I feel your pain, and I will do everything I can to find a way forward. Let's talk tonight. Always W. It's an honest note, but it also shows that just talking might not be enough. He walks through Kensington Palace, looking at family photos. They remind him of duty, sacrifice, and how hard it is to balance being a public figure and having a private life. He wishes his mother, Diana, were there to give him advice. Finally, he calls Harry. Harry sounds relieved to hear from him, but also very hurt. They talk quietly and honestly. William tells Harry how shocked and sad he is and that he will do everything to protect the children. Harry is angry and says so. William listens, understanding their shared pain. They talk for a long time, remembering good times and bad, and promising to stay brothers, even with this big problem between them. William starts to see a way forward. He knows there will be talks, with lawyers, helpers, and finally with his father. He needs to explain why the children should have their birthright, not as an act of disobedience, but to help keep the royal family stable in the future. If they can solve this, the royal family might become stronger. If not, the split could hurt them for a long, long time. He and Catherine plan their next steps, get legal advice, make careful public statements, and show that the family is united behind the scenes. Publicly, William will be calm. Privately, he and Harry will work together to make sure the children are okay. Late that night, William walks outside, promising himself he will honor both the royal family and his bond with his brother. He feels determined. He will find a way through this. Harry's anger. A father fights back. Far away in California, the news hits Harry very hard. Archie and Lilibet shall never bear royal titles or enjoy royal privileges. Ever. He sees pictures of his children in his mind, happy and playing. The word erased keeps repeating in his head. He feels betrayed. He feels angry. He reportedly throws the papers down. His wife Meghan watches him, understanding his pain and worry. Right away, Harry starts making plans. He calls for emergency meetings with his team. The palace is about to hear his side of the story. He decides to speak out publicly. He will not let this happen without a fight. The world needs to hear what he thinks. His helpers tell him to be careful, that fighting back might make things worse with the royal family. But Harry feels he has to speak up. The next morning, it happens. A message from Prince Harry appears. He says he is very disappointed and strongly defends his children's rights. He says he understands his father's power, but feels the decision is a personal and moral injustice. He speaks of his love for his father, but also his duty as a father to protect who his children are. He asks his father to rethink the decision. News channels and websites talk about every word. Experts discuss it. Some newspapers call it another royal rebellion. Others say he was brave to speak his mind. Harry watches all of it. He knows it's risky. People might turn against him. The palace might push him further away. But to him, staying quiet would mean agreeing with the decision. He would rather face the criticism than let his children's heritage be taken away without a fight. Then he does interviews. He appears on a major TV show. Harry speaks directly to the viewers, looking emotional. He talks about how shocked he was, the late-night calls with William, and how sad he felt having to explain this cruel new reality to his wife and indirectly to his children. He almost cries as he defends Archie and Lilibet. Seeing a prince speak so openly, like any worried father, gets a lot of attention. People react strongly and in different ways. Supporters say Harry is brave for breaking away from the usual royal silence. They use hashtags on social media asking for fairness for the children. Critics say he is just trying to get attention and that his actions could split the royal family even more. Was he just being a dad, or did he want the spotlight? Harry knew people would say these things. For him, what mattered most was his children's sense of who they are. His lawyers start working. They look at the king's power, old royal documents, and laws. They find that even though the king's word is very important, it might not be the final say. Future royal orders could change things. The government might need to agree to some parts of it. These are small details, but for Harry, they offer some hope. But Harry also knows that what people think is very powerful. He and his team share little stories about his children. Archie asking about his great-grandfather's big royal ceremony, Lilibet trying on a toy crown. These stories help people see the children as real kids, not just names in a royal argument. He even thinks about making a short movie. This is new for a royal, but Harry is trying everything he can. He tells his team his three-part plan. First, defend his children publicly. Second, challenge the decision using royal law. And third, use media over time to change how people see the situation. Every word must be careful. He asks for help from experts, lawyers, child experts, and historians. Their argument: titles help a child feel like they belong. Taking them away can cause deep hurt. Privately, he writes a letter to his father. He calls him Dad, not King. He talks about happy childhood memories and asks his father to change his mind for the sake of love and family. He says he respects his father's wish to make the royal family more modern, but this decision goes too far. He writes the letter very carefully, trying to show respect, but also his strong feelings. As morning arrives in London, the news of Harry's actions is everywhere. Newspapers around the world are talking about his interview. Polls show many people feel sorry for him. There are whispers that people inside the palace are worried. But Harry stays focused on his children. He spends time with them, tells them stories, and protects them from the drama while publicly fighting for their rights. He plans more media appearances. His message is always the same. Titles are important because they show connection, public acceptance, and a shared story. He says that any real change to the royal family must think about money and rules, but also about being kind to individuals. He talks about past royals like Queen Victoria to show that kings and queens have made changes before without hurting their youngest family members. This is all very hard for Harry personally. He tells friends he feels very angry sometimes and worries about how this will affect his children. He arranges for family counseling to help Archie and Lilibet understand any confusion about who they are. He talks to mental health experts who know about families in the spotlight, wanting to give his children tools to understand their unusual lives. He tries to find quiet moments to think and pray. He remembers his mother telling him to be kind and strong. He decides that no royal decision, no matter how official, can make his children less worthy or change his love for them. One last big move. Harry announces a press conference with his lawyer and a child development expert. They will present emotional reasons and legal arguments together. It's the first time a senior royal has publicly challenged a king's private wish like this. For Harry, it's a huge risk. But his goal is clear. He will not let his children be forgotten or erased. The palace responds, trying to control the story. Back at Kensington Palace, it's less like a calm royal home and more like an emergency headquarters. Palace workers arrive very early with notes and plans. There are whispers of secret meetings, emotional arguments, a duke's diary found open with notes questioning the king's decision, and messages flying back and forth to Frogmore Cottage, where Harry and Meghan are staying with their children and increased security. People wonder, is William on his father's side or his brother's? Who in the palace supports Harry? What will Princess Anne do now? Later in the morning, top palace staff meet. Not for a fancy event, but to manage this crisis. The Lord Chamberlain, a very important royal official, looks serious. Next to him is the private secretary who spent the night writing a public statement and preparing legal notes. Prince William's private secretary is also there, caught between his loyalty to William and his duty to the king. Catherine's helper is there too, checking on how the family is doing emotionally. The first goal is simple: write a public statement that admits the king's wish but also says that talks are still happening. But it's not easy. William's team wants the statement to hint that the decision could be looked at again later. The Lord Chamberlain's office wants to say the decision is final. Catherine's helpers want the statement to sound kind, worrying that cold legal words will upset the public. A heated argument starts when someone suggests talking about the king's long-time plan to make the royal family smaller. Someone else insists they must also say that Archie and Lilibet are still part of the royal family by blood and love. Meanwhile, at Frogmore Cottage, Harry's team is working on their own plan. His communications expert, who flew in from California, leads a video meeting with his lawyer, child welfare experts, and a filmmaker. Their goals are clear: show the children as lovable kids, highlight the emotional harm of being erased, and get their story out before the palace can. They plan to use home videos of Archie and Lilibet playing happily with their grandparents. The idea is to remind the world who these children are before royal titles became a problem. At Kensington, it feels like preparing for a battle. Departments that usually move slowly are now working very fast. More food is ordered for working lunches. Security plans for handling protesters are made. People who usually handle invitations are now writing questions for press conferences. Everyone in the palace, from the people who care for the royal horses to those who look after the crown jewels, is watching this crisis. They know that a split in the royal family could harm more than just its image. It could damage the public's trust, which has been built up over many years. Longtime palace workers remember other family troubles when King Edward VIII gave up the throne, Princess Diana's separation. Each memory taught them how to handle drama with dignity. Some whisper that this fight between a father and his sons could be even more serious because it involves two young children caught in the middle. Late in the afternoon, lawyers from William's team and Harry's team meet in a quiet room at St. James's Palace. It's a neutral place. The lawyers have piles of books with royal laws. Harry's lawyer argues that the king's decision could be softened, pointing to old royal laws. William's helpers, while more understanding, warn that a big legal fight could make the public think the royals are just fighting amongst themselves. They look for a compromise. Maybe Archie and Lilibet could have honorary titles without full royal status, but still get things like security and help with schooling, like titled royals. The meeting is tense but serious. Everyone respects that the other side is trying to protect the family. At one point, someone suggests a private family getaway at Balmoral Castle, where Charles, William, Harry, Anne, and their helpers could try to sort things out away from the media. But this is seen as too hard to arrange, partly because of reports about the king's health. Instead, they agree on a plan. Send legal ideas by the end of the week, then make a joint public statement, and after that, have a private video call between the king and his sons. While lawyers argue about rules, palace psychologists say it's important to remember the human feelings. They suggest regular check-ins with Archie and Lilibet's tutors and child psychologists to see how they are doing emotionally. They also suggest gentle lessons about their family history, helping the children understand where they come from without focusing too much on titles. There is also advice on how Meghan and Catherine should handle difficult questions from reporters without making things worse. In the evening, the palace press office writes the joint public statement. It's a careful balancing act. It says the king's wishes are due to his plan for a focused royal family, but also states that all grandchildren are still loved members of the family. The statement is sent for approval. First to William and Catherine, then Harry and Meghan, and finally to the Lord Chamberlain's office. Changes are made back and forth. Every word is chosen carefully. It is released at 7 p.m. The palace team gets ready for public reaction, with answers prepared for every possible question. They also have videos ready that show the family united at other times, like Christmas or charity events, to try to balance the story of division. Privately, though, people don't feel like they've won. One longtime helper wrote in a diary, "We managed to keep the ship from sinking, but there's still a crack in it. Behind the scenes at Kensington and Frogmore, the palace staff, the often unseen people who make the royal family work, feel torn between the father and sons, between the institution and their personal feelings." As night falls, the crisis team continues to work, trying to keep both the family together and the royal family stable. But the memory of private arguments, worried practices, and personal sadness remains, a reminder that even in the oldest institutions, human connections and family love are the strongest and most easily broken threads. The experts speak: history, law, and what people think. Soon after the news, experts start sharing their thoughts. Historians, writers who know a lot about the royals, law experts, and people who used to work for the royal family. Each one looks at the king's wish from a different angle. Dr. Eleanor Hastings, a history professor, says this kind of decision is very big, but not completely new. She compares it to when King George V changed rules about royal titles during a war. But she says King George did it because of outside events, while King Charles is doing it because of his own ideas for the royal family. She thinks it's about making the royal family smaller and more focused. But not everyone agrees. Dr. Malcolm Sydenham, who wrote about Queen Elizabeth II, warns that when you erase people from the official story, it can cause hidden hurts that last a long time. He says titles mean a lot emotionally, and taking them away from Archie and Lilibet is like rewriting their life story. He worries that the sadness this causes might be worse than any benefits for the royal family. Professor Julian Cranford, who studies royal law, says that a king's wish is very important, but it's not always the final word. Future kings or queens could change it. The government could even pass a law to give the titles back, but that would be very complicated. Maybe King Charles's decision is meant to be a strong message, not something that can never be changed. Victoria Langley, a writer who comments on the royals, thinks about it in terms of family relationships. She believes King Charles's own experiences with being watched by the public all the time made him want a smaller royal family. This wish, she thinks, is about keeping things dignified and less complicated. She even mentions that Catherine, Princess of Wales, reportedly worried about how many staff and how much planning was needed when William's large family went on holidays. But Lord Arthur Pembroke, who used to be in the government, doesn't like this all-or-nothing idea. He says that even younger royals who don't have official duties can help people stay interested in the royal family and its traditions. He suggests giving Archie and Lilibet honorary titles so they can use them for special occasions but not get public money or have official jobs. Dr. Serena Okoye, who studies modern royalty, points out that what the public thinks is tricky. Polls show that many people in Britain want a smaller royal family, but at the same time, they feel sorry for Harry's children. The palace has to deal with these mixed feelings. Dame Margaret Sinclair, who used to work for Queen Elizabeth II, gives an insider's view. She says a big decision like this probably took months of thinking and talking with the king's closest helpers and lawyers. It wasn't a quick choice. King Charles wanted to leave behind a royal family that was more streamlined. She also says that the decision considered money in the long run. Having fewer royals with titles could save the public a lot of money over many years. However, Sir Edmund Fahey, another law expert, questions if it's legal and if it looks good. He says that while the king has a lot of power to give or take away titles, there are rules. The old rules limited who got titles, but didn't just take existing ones away from grandchildren. For King Charles to apply a new rule to his grandchildren in this way raises legal questions. He thinks there could be legal fights, but courts might say it's a private family matter. Experts from America also share their views. Dr. Margaret Kleen says that even though America doesn't have royal titles, family names still mean a lot. To take away children's place in a long family story is like taking away part of who they are. Polls show that older people tend to support King Charles's ideas for modernizing, while younger people feel more strongly that it's unfair to the children. There's a lot of talk on social media, especially among younger users. Universities and study groups discuss it. Economists talk about the costs and benefits of the royal family. Law experts look at how other countries like Sweden and the Netherlands have handled similar situations with royal titles, noting that sometimes these decisions are changed or adjusted later. So was King Charles right to leave out his grandkids, or was this a cold royal move? What do you think? Like this story and subscribe for more royal secrets.